And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome into our special coverage, our live edition of the inauguration this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I want to take you live right now as we're watching the events unfolding at the Capitol and the former President Barack Obama, and First Lady Michelle Obama arriving. Moments ago, we saw Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton arriving. There's Senate Majority Leader, soon-to-be Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer as well. So in literally about an hour or so, he will become Senate Majority Leader. John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock will be seated after this event as senators from Georgia. So he is not technically yet Majority Leader. There is Steve Scalise. There's George W. Bush. They've been arriving over the last 45 minutes or so. Good to see everyone here joining us for our special coverage.
The Honorable John G. Roberts, Jr., and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court.
John Roberts, and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court arriving now. Presiding over the oath of office. Really, the only reason we even are here today is because of the Constitution on this day. There's Justice Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. The only reason we have this day is because it's supposed to administer the oath of office, and it's about 37 words long. That's it. So we don't even need a speech. We literally could just go, put your hand on the Bible, raise your hand, swear that you plan to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and we could be out of here. But that's not going to happen. So President Biden President-elect Biden is expected to speak for about 20 minutes.
The children of Vice President-elect Harris and Mr. Douglas Imhoff, Cole Mackin Imhoff, and
This is the family of Mike Pence and the soon-to-be this is Doug Imhoff. This is the family of Mike Pence. Doug Imhoff, Kamala Harris. So good to see everyone. Lindsay says, I like your black jacket with the white underneath. It gives a slightly visible, very priestly of you. Or judge-like. Yeah. I thought maybe I'd wear a tie today, but I haven't worn a tie on the air since I was a news anchor. There's Brett Kavanaugh. Those are the members of the Supreme Court. That's James Clyburn there in the red hat. It's funny that he's wearing a ball cap. There's Amy Coney Barrett, the newest of the justices. You guys can hear me okay in the chat, right? Let me guys know how many of you guys are here. Nice to see everyone. There's Justice John Roberts. Hey, Justice John Roberts, you know, the mask doesn't work when you have it under your nose. Okay, there you go. Thank you, CJ. Good to see you, Cheryl Hodge. Joyce McGrew is here. Kim Quinn. Darren Deneau is here. See all of you. You know, you think about these days, there's been a lot of interesting really bizarre sort of historical moments at these inaugurations. There's been times, of course, when it's been so bad, the weather's been so inclement that they've had to bring it inside the Capitol building. There was the second inauguration of Ulysses S. Grant, where it was just incredibly, brutally cold, where they had the ball afterwards, and everyone kept their coats on because it was inside of a structure that they had erected that had like no insulation, and it was freezing. They actually hung inside this big, sort of almost like a greenhouse that they built for the second inauguration parties and ball for Ulysses S. Grant. They hung bird cages from the ceiling to make it more appealing, and they put a bunch of little parrots and canaries in bird cages. Well, because it was so cold throughout the night, these dead birds were falling on people's heads while everyone was trying to dance. So the birds were falling down on their heads while they were trying to dance in frozen conditions. Of course, Ulysses S. Grant, his first inauguration, was the last time where a former president didn't attend. Andrew Johnson, the first president to be impeached, split, said, "I'm not coming," and left on horseback and rode out of the Capitol, or rode out of the White House that morning, and did not attend the inauguration of Ulysses S. Grant. So this is the first time in 152 years that a president has not attended the inauguration. A sitting president in that peaceful, so-called peaceful transfer of power. This is the first time. The president leaving this morning, President Trump leaving this morning, says, "I hope I won't be too long till I see you again real soon in a different form." Knows what that form will be. Here is, I believe that's the vice president. Vice President Pence now coming down the steps. So at least he came to the inauguration. And his wife Jane. Look at you look at inaugurations past. Here's one that stands out, of course. I don't think we've been in a more tumultuous time in our history since 1861. The inauguration of, look at that dais right there that they have built on the Capitol. Now look at this. This is what it looked like in 1861 as the Capitol Dome still is being finished. It wasn't even finished yet. You can see the scaffolding up above. This is Abraham Lincoln at his inauguration, 1861, March 4th of 1861. Arguably the last time we were a nation like this, split in half. Cute baby, the vice president's family. Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Secret Service there as well. We saw rank and file members of Congress coming through just a short time ago, and some other distinguished guests, but there are, of course, no guests here other than that today. There will be no crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the Vice President, the Secretary of the Senate, the Honorable Julie E. Adams, and Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives, Catherine Spindor.
The only reason we have an inauguration in January, used to take place, of course, in March, That was tradition. Like when we look at the inauguration of Abraham Lincoln in 1861, that happened on March 4th, 1861. When George Washington was inaugurated, that happened in April. But a little known amendment to the Constitution.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Michael R. Pence and Mrs. Karen Pence.
So again, the only reason it's been moved to January, to where we have our inauguration, is a little known amendment to the Constitution that no one really cares about or talks about. It's the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. And it happened in 1933 because at that point, basically we were waiting for FDR to come into office, and everyone thought it was ridiculous that he would run and be elected in November, and then we'd have to wait until March for him to actually take office, and the country was destroyed because of the Great Depression. And so Congress voted to move it up. They voted and amended the Constitution and moved the inauguration up to January 20th. So that's the 20th Amendment of the Constitution. So instead of on a beautiful sort of maybe spring day in Washington, D.C. with blooming trees, it's moved to the frigid January 20th. And that's the reason. I mean, think about it. It would be the same right now if we thought about it, right? We're in this crazy pandemic. President Trump all but checked out. Vaccine distribution has been horrible. The economy is, shedding jobs left and right. And we would have to wait until March or April for Biden to be inaugurated if we didn't have the 20th Amendment. So that's why it was moved from March to January. And the time that it was totally arbitrary when you'd be inaugurated, because it was just randomly. It was when Congress would hold its first meeting of the year was March. So then they decided, that's a good time. That's a good time for the president to be sworn in. Right now it's 41 degrees in Washington, D.C. There's about a 10% chance of rain right now, so we could see some raindrops during the speech. Wouldn't be the first time. Wouldn't be the first time also that it snowed. It's just crazy. There's Mike Pence. No Trump. No Trump. Like think about this moment, right? Just 4 years ago, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they're all there, shaking his hand, wishing him well on that morning. Not this time, though, huh? There's been a lot of unusual inaugurations. This is not going to be the first odd inauguration. For instance, in March of 1829, Andrew Jackson invited a big crowd to come back for an open house at the White House. Like a big party, did Andrew Jackson. 20,000 people showed up. Alcohol was flowing all over the place, and it got out of control. Furniture was smashed, china was broken, food, drinks spilled everywhere. Nearly every surface. It took weeks to clean the White House after Andrew Jackson's inauguration party. And the Supreme Court even said the reign of King Mob seemed triumphant. And even they had to get him out of there to be safe. They had to, like, take him away from the festivities. He was just, like, partying all night. As I mentioned, the Canaries at Ulysses S. Grant's second inauguration in 1873. It was so cold. It was only 16 degrees at noon that day. It was windy and just frigid. They had this inaugural ball set up at a temporary building that they had built. They put big bird cages up in the ceiling because, you know, you decorate things with birds back then. Do you guys still decorate things with birds? I don't. But they put all of these canaries up in cages at the roof to make it look pretty. And then throughout the night, as people were celebrating, they kept their top coats on because it was so cold. They were dancing. Dead canaries were falling on their heads throughout the ceremony, throughout the dance party. They froze to death in their cages. There's Kamala Harris, the incoming Vice President of the United States, in a purple... Oh, blue. It's purple. Is that purple? I think that's purple. What do you guys think in the chat? My wife says she thinks it's blue. What do you guys think? Is that, it looks blue, people saying. Purple, 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 purple. Yeah, everyone, see, you're on my side here. It's purple. The incoming... Ooh. She almost tripped down the step. She gave a thumbs up. She said, whoa. That's what I would do. I would fall down the steps. I'd be like, okay, you're gonna be... You have to walk down these steps to take the oath of office to be president. And I'd be like Chevy Chase in Saturday Night Live, and I'd be tripping down the steps. You would, too. Yeah, my wife would, too. For sure. Purple. Yeah. People agree with me, it's purple. We'll see in the light. Blue, it matched the curtains. Okay.
Accompanying the Vice President-elect, the Chief of Inaugural Ceremonies, Maria Miller-Lohmeyer, the Acting Deputy House Sergeant-at-Arms, Kevin Grubbs, and the Acting Deputy Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, United States Capitol Police Officer Private First Class Eugene O. Goodman.
So this is Eugene Goodman, of course. Made famous by... There he is. You might remember him as the Capitol Police, the brave Capitol Police officer who led that mob away from the Senate floor. He knew that the Senate floor was that way, and he led them that way. One guy up against that angry mob. That's Officer Eugene Goodman escorting Kamala Harris today. That's awesome.
President-elect of the United States, Kamala Devi Harris, and Mr. Douglas Emhoff.
I think it's blue. We'll see in the light here. I think it's purple. What she's wearing. Bluish purple. Okay. Harris is wearing a blue shirt and a purple jacket, someone says in the chat. Elite Geeks. Okay. RJ Supreme says, I thought only monarchs wear purple for ceremonies. Giving an elbow to President Obama. I don't know, who is that? It's such a weird thing, yeah, like should they be hugging right now? Is it... Big pandemic. We know all those members of Congress got coronavirus last week when they were trapped with other members of Congress. At least they have masks on, right? So it'll be interesting to see, like, will President-elect Biden be wearing a mask during the reading of the oath? Will he take the mask off? Will Justice Roberts be wearing a mask during the oath? These are little interesting questions that we've never had to deal with before in American history, right? All right, so we are being told it is purple. Aisha Cabrera says, Clayton, thanks for bringing us the show today. You bet. Thank you for joining us here. Thanks to all of our new subscribers to our channel. We normally do our show every morning live at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, but we're doing our extra coverage today of the inauguration. Scott Kalman says, I saw a MAGA hat. No, you you didn't. No, that's James Clyburn there. He's got a red hat on. It's an interesting choice to wear a hat today. But it's freezing. It is 41 degrees and there's a chance of rain. He's wearing a hat, a little, what kind of a hat is that? That would actually be kind of cool. I would actually, I would like to wear, like if I was going to be inaugurated, I'd like to wear like a really classy looking hat. Presidents throughout history would wear like a really stylish hat during like an inauguration ceremony. Bring that back. Bring the hat back. Well, here is President-elect Biden about to make his way down.
The Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Staff Representative Alexandria Gordican-DeChico, accompanying the House Republican leader, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy. Staff Representative Bridget Brennan, accompanying House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steny Hoyer and Mrs. Yvette Lewis. Staff Representative Kate Knudsen, accompanying Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi and Mr. Paul Pelosi. Staff Representative Lindsey Kerr, accompanying the Honorable Amy Klobuchar and Mr. John Bessler. Staff Representative Stephanie Hager-Mucko, accompanying Senate Majority Leader, the Honorable Mitch McConnell and the Honorable Elaine L. Chao. And Staff Representative Rochelle Graves Schroeder, accompanying the Chairman.
There's the President-elect. His wife Jill. Man, that floor looks slippery, doesn't it? I don't know how you ladies do it. I would not want to walk on that with heels. No way. Yes, that is definitely a blue coat. We've definitely had some freezing weather before. Stand by.
Face. Port. Home. Forward. Up.
In 1841, William Henry Harrison was inaugurated as the 9th president. It was so cold. This is a famous story. It was so cold he chose not to wear a hat, gloves, or an overcoat at all. He just wanted to show that he was strong. He gave a speech that was 8,000 words long. It's also the longest speech ever given for an inauguration. It was so cold. And then he died 32 days later because he got pneumonia. Oh, it's snowing. Look at that. So we were going to see some flurries. We are seeing some flurries now, but it's, why is it that, it shouldn't be that cold.
Ladies President-elect, the staff director of the Joint Congressional Committee and Inaugural Ceremonies, Fitzhugh Elder IV, the acting House Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Tim Blodgett, and the acting Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Jennifer Hemingway.
There are gale force winds right now in Washington, D.C. It remains in effect until 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So, winds about 15 to 20 knots. They should expect. Look at the flags and the flipping over there. That must be fun to play with that flapping around. 35 knot winds in Washington, D.C. right now. Yeah, William Henry Harrison was the first president to die in office until he was also the oldest person to assume the presidency up until Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump now holds the record. Here's President-elect Joe Biden. Let's listen in. And Joe Biden is 78. He will be the oldest president ever inaugurated.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Vice President Pence, Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, members of Congress and the judicial branch, former presidents and first ladies, vice presidents, leaders from abroad, and a whole bunch of Bidens. America, welcome to the 59th presidential inauguration, where in just a few moments, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will take their solemn oaths. This ceremony is the culmination of 244 years of a democracy. It is the moment when leaders brought to this stage by the will of the people promise to be faithful to our Constitution, to cherish it and defend it. It is the moment when they become, as we all should be, guardians of our country. Have we become too jaded, too accustomed to the ritual of the passing of the torch of democracy to truly appreciate what a blessing and a privilege it is to witness this moment? I think not. 2 weeks ago, when an angry, violent mob staged an insurrection and desecrated this temple of our democracy, it awakened us to our responsibilities as Americans. This is the day when our democracy picks itself up, brushes off the dust, and does what America always does: goes forward as a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This conveyance of a sacred trust between our leaders and our people takes place in front of this shining Capitol dome for a reason. When Abraham Lincoln gave his first inaugural address in front of this Capitol, the dome was only partially constructed, braced by ropes of steel. He promised he would finish it. He was criticized for spending funds on it during the Civil War. To those critics, he replied, "If the people see the Capitol going on, it is a sign we intend the Union shall go on. And it did, and it will. Generations of Americans gave their lives to preserve our republic in this place. Great legislation to protect civil rights and economic security and lead the world was debated and crafted under this dome. Now it falls on all of us, not just the two leaders we are inaugurating today, to take up the torch of our democracy, not as a weapon of political arson, but as an instrument for good. We pledge today never to take our democracy for granted as we celebrate its remarkable strength. We celebrate its resilience, its grit. We celebrate the ordinary people doing extraordinary things for our nation, the doctors and nurses on the front line of this pandemic, the officers in the Capitol, a new generation never giving up hope for justice. We celebrate a new president, Joe Biden, who vows to restore the soul of America and cross the river of our divides to a higher plane. And we celebrate our first African American, first Asian American, and first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, who stands on the shoulders of so many on this platform who have forged the way to this day. When she takes the oath of office, little girls and boys across the world will know that anything and everything is possible. And in the end, that is America, our democracy, a country of so much good. And today, on these Capitol steps and before this glorious field of flags, we rededicate ourselves to its cause. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce to you the senator who has worked with me and so many others to make this ceremony possible, my friend and the chair of the Inaugural Committee, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt.
Well, I should have known when Senator Klobuchar got involved, at least there'd be a touch of snow up here this morning. Of all the things we'd considered, I don't think snow was on my agenda till I walked out the door a moment ago. But thank you, Senator Klobuchar, and thanks to the other members of the Joint Congressional Committee on the Inauguration as we officially begin the 59th inaugural ceremony. I also want to thank the Joint Committee staff and our partners, particularly our security partners, for the way they've dealt with unprecedented circumstances. When I chaired the inauguration 4 years ago, I shared President Reagan's 1981 description of this event as commonplace and miraculous. Commonplace because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Miraculous because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Americans have celebrated this moment during war, during depression, and now during pandemic. Once again, all three branches of our government come together as the Constitution envisions. Once again, we renew our commitment to our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union. That theme for this inauguration, our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union, was announced by the Joint Committee before the election with the belief that the United States can only fulfill its promise and set an example for others if we are always working to be better than we have been. The Constitution established that determined democracy with its first three words, declaring the people as the source of the government. The Articles of Confederation hadn't done that. The Magna Carta hadn't done that. Only the Constitution says the government exists because the people are the source of the reason it exists. They immediately followed those first three words with the words to form a more perfect union. The founders did not say to form a perfect union. They did not claim that in our new country nothing would need to be improved. Fortunately, they understood that always working to be better would be the hallmark of a great democracy. The freedoms we have today, the nation we have today, is not here just because it happened, and they aren't complete. A great democracy working through the successes and failures of our history, striving to be better than it had been. And we are more than we have been, and we are less than we hope to be. The assault on our Capitol at this very place just 2 weeks ago reminds us that a government designed to balance and check itself is both fragile and resilient. During the last year, the pandemic challenged our free and open society and called for extraordinary determination and sacrifice, and still challenges us today. Meeting that challenge head on have been and are healthcare workers, scientists, first responders, essential frontline workers, and so many others we depend on in so many ways. Today we come to this moment. People all over the world, as we're here, are watching and will watch what we do here. Our government comes together. The Congress and the courts join the transition of executive responsibility. One political party more pleased today and on every inaugural day than the other. But this is not a moment of division, it's a moment of unification. A new administration begins and brings with it a new beginning. And with that, our great national debate goes forward, and a determined democracy will continue to be essential in pursuit of a more perfect union and a better future for all Americans. What a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you. I'm pleased to call to the podium a longtime friend of the President-elect and his family, Father Leo O'Donovan, to lead us in an invocation. Please stand if you are able and remain standing for the national anthem and the pledge to our flag.
Gracious and merciful God, at this sacred time we come before you in need, indeed on our knees. But we come still more with hope and with our eyes raised anew to the vision of a more perfect union in our land, a union of all our citizens to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We are a people of many races, creeds, and colors, national backgrounds, cultures, and styles, now far more numerous and on land much vaster than when Archbishop John Carroll wrote his prayer for the inauguration of George Washington 232 years ago. Archbishop Carroll prayed that you, O Creator of all, would assist with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude the President of these United States, that his administration may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people. Today we confess our past failures to live according to our vision of equality, inclusion, and freedom for all. Yet we resolutely commit still more now to renewing the vision, to caring for one another in word and deed, especially the least fortunate among us, and so becoming a light for the world. There is a power in each and every one of us that lives by turning to every other one of us, a thrust of the Spirit to cherish and care and stand by others, and above all, those most in need. It is called love, and its path is to give ever more of itself. Today, it is called American patriotism, born not of power and privilege, but of care for the common good, with malice toward none and with charity for all. For our new president, we beg of you the wisdom Solomon sought when he knelt before you and prayed for an understanding heart, so that I can govern your people and know the difference between right and wrong. We trust in the counsel of the letter of James. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Pope Francis has reminded us how important it is to dream together. By ourselves, he wrote, we risk seeing mirages, things that are not there. Dreams, on the other hand, are built together. Be with us, holy mystery of love, as we dream together. Help us under our new president to reconcile the people of our land, restore our dream and invest it with peace and justice and the joy that is the overflow of love. To the glory of your name, forever, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the presentation of our national colors by the Armed Forces Color Guard, the singing of our national anthem, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, here for the singing of our national anthem, accompanied by the President's own United States Marine Band, please welcome Lady Gaga.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars
I love that golden microphone. Work it, girl. Lady Gaga singing the national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the city of South Fulton, Georgia Fire and Rescue Department, President of the International Association of Firefighters, Local 3920, Fire Captain Andrea M. Hall, for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What you are all about to be part of, America, is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Making sure that my girls get to see this historic moment. My first female in American history taking the oath of office for the vice presidency.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome Jennifer Lopez to perform This Land Is Your Land and America the Beautiful, accompanied by members of the President's Own United States Marine Band.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking down that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land, oh, this land. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land, oh, this land. This land was made for you and me. You and me. Oh, America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea. Una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Let's get loud. 'Cause this land was made for you and me.
Well, that was great. The sun is shining, and Mr. President-elect, this is the first inauguration in the history of America where J-Lo was the warm-up act for Chief Justice Roberts. With that, it is now my distinct honor to introduce the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, John Roberts, to administer the presidential oath to the next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
My fellow Americans, a moment we have all been waiting for. It is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, and my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people, has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I know And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken. The oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand, across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Well, what'd you think? What did you guys think of the speech? I thought it was kind of the kind of speech that we need right now. A message of healing, a message of unity, talking about the soul of our country. There were some moments where you could tell. I mean, you know, anyone who's ever met him, anyone who's ever interviewed him, I have interviewed him in my time in Philadelphia Fox 29 is relatively close to.
Gentlemen, please welcome Garth Brooks to perform Amazing Grace.
Here's Garth Brooks. Let me listen to this and I'll shut up. The belt buckle and the jeans. And then we're going to have some Madeira wine, which is historical on these inaugurations, going back to George Washington having some Madeira wine, toasting his inauguration.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound then saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. If I can ask you to sing this last verse with me, not just the people here, but the people at home, at work, as one, united. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Wow. I got chills from that. That was great. Garth Brooks singing Amazing Grace, cowboy hat, jeans, and a belt buckle. That really was. Saw so many of you said that in the chat. You had chills. So, historic moment. After George Washington was sworn in, gives George W. Bush a big hug. Runs out of there. Madeira wine has very deep ties to American history.
Hard not to be reminded of President Obama's singing that same song at the Mother Emanuel Church.
Senator Roy Blunt. But Madeira wine was toasted after the inauguration, so
Close to both poetry and prayer.
after the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
We're going to finish with those two things. Let me introduce Amanda Gorman.
Yeah, you want to pour
our
it?
nation's first ever National Poet Laureate.
Over here, in front of the camera.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Holy smokes. That's fire. That was unbelievable. Andrea Gorman, who 2017 Nobel laureate, Youth Nobel laureate, grew up with a speech impediment, so she took to writing because she wanted to craft voices. The voices that she felt like were not getting represented, the voices in her head. She put pen to paper, and what an unbelievable poet. Holy smokes. Buy her book. Go on Amazon and buy her book. Help support this young girl who just delivered fire. That was beautiful. I got chills. Wow. I got tears in my eyes. Grover liked it too. Her name is Andrea.
As a nation and people of faith gathered in this historical moment, let us unite in prayer. God, we gather under the beauty of your holiness and the holiness of your beauty. We seek your face, your smile, your warm embrace. We petition you once more in this celebration. We pray for divine favor upon our President, Joseph R. Biden, and our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and their family. We further ask that you would extend the same favor upon our Vice President, Kamala D. Harris, and our second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, and their family. More than ever, they and our nation need you. We need you, for in you we discover our common humanity. In our common humanity, we will seek out the wounded and bind their wounds. We will seek healing for those who are sick and diseased. We will mourn our dead. We will befriend the lonely, the least, and the left out. We will share our abundance with those who are hungry. We will do justly to the oppressed, acknowledge sin, and seek forgiveness, thus grasping reconciliation. In discovering our humanity, we will seek the good in and for all our neighbors. We will love the unlovable, remove the stigma of the so-called untouchables. We will care for our most vulnerable, our children, the elderly, emotionally challenged, and the poor. We will seek rehabilitation beyond correction. We will extend opportunity to those locked out of opportunity. We will make friends of our enemies. We will make friends of our enemies. People, your people, shall no longer raise up weapons against one another. We will rather use our resources for the national good and become a beacon of life and goodwill to the world. And neither shall we learn hatred anymore. We will lie down in peace and not make our neighbors afraid. In you, O God, we discover our humanity. In our humanity, we discover our commonness. Beyond the difference of color, creed, origin, political party, ideology, geography, and personal preferences, we'll become greater stewards of your environment, preserving the land, reaping from it a sustainable harvest, and securing its wonder and miracle-giving power for generations to come. This is our benediction, that from these hallowed grounds where slaves labored to build this shrine and citadel to liberty and democracy. Let us all acknowledge, from the indigenous Native American to those who recently received their citizenship, from the African American to those whose foreparents came from Europe and every corner of the globe, from the wealthy to those struggling to make it, from every human being, regardless of their choices, that this is our country. As such, teach us, O God. As such, teach us, O God, to live in it, love in it, be healed in it, and reconcile to one another in it, lest we miss kingdom's goal. To your glory, majesty, dominion, and power forever. Hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. In the strong name of our collective faith. Amen.
Please remain standing as the Armed Forces Color Guard retires our national colors.
All right. Beautiful speeches. Wind whipping these flags around as they're trying to make their way around. We have wind gusts up to 35 miles an hour in Washington. There you have it. Joe Biden is now the 46th President of the United States. They have the different flags for the different branches of the armed services. I just saw the Space Force flag walk by. Legacy of Trump with a Space Force flag walking by. There's your new Vice President.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and remain in your seats while the President and official party depart the platform.
So they're
For
leaving
safety
now?
reasons, your ushers will release your section in an organized...
So there you go. That's a wrap, folks. And again, a little history here, a little history lesson. You know, I'm a history buff, was a history major. And so on after the inauguration of George Washington, he used to drink a bottle of this a day, George Washington did. Apparently he had a couple of sets of false teeth because he used to drink so much of it. He used to drink a bottle of Madeira wine a day, which is a bit of a fortified type of wine from the island about 635 miles away from Portugal, and in kind of a trade route in the island of Madeira between Portugal and the United States. And so it was very, very popular drink back then. But after his inauguration, come here, honey. We're going to do a little toast now. My wife and I to a toast. Hopefully,
I really dress special for the occasion.
a better day in America, hopefully. Regardless of your partisanship or where you come down, this is a historic moment. So a little Madeira wine.
Cheers.
Cheers to peace.
It's not bad.
No, it's like a port, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well,
it's a dry wine. It was...
The founding fathers liked it because it was a wine with spirits added, so it traveled safely across the sea without going bad.
And you can heat
Happy
it, too.
Inauguration Day, everybody.
You can heat it, too. You can actually, like...
Yes.
You know, put it in like a nice, like bourbon glass and put it under there. There you go. There is your new President of the United States. New First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. Leaving the dais. How often do you get to say dais? Dais, which is that giant platform that they've erect for this inauguration. There's your new Vice President. So Dick Cheney, I didn't see Dick Cheney there. I think I don't know how his health has been. I don't think very good. Jimmy Carter was also not there. President Jimmy Carter couldn't make it, but they spoke yesterday. He spoke to Joe Biden yesterday, wished him well. So he was unable to attend. Yeah, someone says, Alyssa says, oh, by the way, Clayton, Fox News says she isn't a doctor. Yeah, whatever. I love that debate. That's the most ridiculous debate. By the way, on Fox News, we used to have Dr. Sebastian Gorka on the show on a regular basis. Dr. Sebastian Gorka. They introduced him. He's a political science doctor. He's got his doctorate in political science. You still call him doctor. Dr. Jill Biden. Yes. She's not fixing hernias. Doesn't matter. She earned it. So there you go. New president of the United States. A couple of things have been updated this hour, by the way, we should take a look at. So just a short time ago, Twitter updated itself. Here's the new Twitter page. Twitter updated the POTUS page. It's now President Biden. With the very first tweet right there. And also, the whitehouse.gov page was also flipped over to this. Whitehouse.gov now has this as the front page. Grover likes that. And here's that. So all of that stuff has been cleaned. All the Trump stuff was cleaned off of whitehouse.gov and archived. Here's the front page of some different major websites. See if I can... wonder what the MyPillow guy is doing right now. Biden takes the oath, calls for unity. Front page of Drudge. Among the things that he talked about, democracy prevailing. He talked about the need for healing. It was a short speech. Members of Congress now leaving as well. And so the president, we know, is going to be heading back to the White House right now with a military escort. And he will go to the White House and he's going to sign 12 executive actions, a lot of which is going to undo President Trump's actions on climate, Paris Climate Accords, immigration reform, a number of things that he will undo this afternoon with the stroke of a pen. Just looking to see how long that's going to... Yeah, that should take just a short amount of time as they get over to the White House, and he's going to start on that process. By the way, that Amanda Gorman, holy smokes. Amanda Gorman, the poet, the young girl who grew up with a speech impediment, who took to writing to, as she said, to give voice to those who had difficulty speaking, who couldn't be heard. She read that amazing poem. I said, go buy her book on Amazon. Amanda Gorman. She won the 2017 National Youth Poet Laureate. She is a poet laureate in 2017. That was stunning. That was a stunning moment. They don't make this easier for these old members of Congress to be going up and down the stairs. So I wonder what the vice president does today. He's no longer vice president of the United States. You go back to Indiana. So what did everyone think of the speech? I'm curious your thoughts on the speech. Drop me a line here in the chat. Says the book's not available, really. Someone just said they bought it. I just saw. Someone just said they got it. Maybe it's like sold out or something already, but it's probably got a digital version, right? It's called The Hill We Will Climb. This is the name of the book. The Hill We Climb. The Hill We Climb. It's a hardcover book. Oh, it's temporarily out of stock. Wow. Of the hardcover edition of it. Maybe there's another version you can get. Wow. I think people... I wouldn't doubt that that's probably like the #1 trending book right now. People finding out who that girl is, buying that. Amazing that she overcame the speech impediment. You know, Vice President Biden, now President Biden, had suffered from a speech impediment, stuttering through most of his life, talks openly about it. And so here's a young girl who overcame that to give this amazing poem, read this amazing poem. So really remarkable. There's Lady Gaga, President Obama. I thought she did an amazing job. J-Lo was okay. I don't know. I never felt like, I'll say it publicly, I never felt like J-Lo could actually sing. That's just my thought on that. So, Sherry Webb says something perfect, which is, from this day forward, let us keep our eyes and our ears open. That's what we need to do. Look, we need to hold all of these people accountable. I am not going to, you know that I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I am an independent. But on this day, I'm toasting some Madeira wine to President Biden, and hope that he has an incredible presidency. I hope that he's able to lift people out of poverty. I hope that he's able to make meaningful change on climate in this generation for our next generation. I hope he can eliminate public student loan debt, creating a healthcare system that actually works for people, not against them. He's got a tall mountain to climb, and these are baby steps. So let's see. And we will hold him accountable, we'll hold Congress accountable, and we'll continue to shine a light on all of that here on the channel. So thank you to all of our new channel members. We've got a bunch of new channel members today. Thank you for becoming a channel member. You can do so by supporting independent journalism by going to morninginvest.com/join. We are not bought and sold by billionaire media corporations. We are not CNN. We are not MSNBC. We are not Fox. We get to express our opinions here openly and honestly, pushing for progressive issues that matter to you, pushing to make sure that they get stimulus passed, pushing to make sure that healthcare gets changed in this country, pushing for effective climate change, eliminating student loans, pushing for pre-public college. We've got to keep our foot on the gas, because now the real work begins. Trump is gone, and now the real work starts. Now, how will progressives be able to voice their needs in this country and be able to rise up and push for meaningful change? That's the goal, my friends. So much love to all of you on this Inauguration Day. We'll be watching to see what Biden signs this afternoon. President Biden signs this afternoon. And where we go from here next on stimulus. So keep it right here. If you're not already a channel subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. We do our shows live every day. We have an amazing group of people who join us every day. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this special edition, this inauguration. Enjoy some Madeira wine if you have it, just like George Washington used to do on Inauguration Day. There's A-Rod, and with that, let's say my goodbyes, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you real soon. Much love to all of you.